Good afternoon, everybody. Pastor Jonathan Pike here. It is February the 11th, 2022. I've got to come to you right now and tell you about the events of Russia and Ukraine and what is happening. First of all, Russia is being a bully. I mean, that's just the only way I can know how to put it. They are bullying Ukraine. They know for a fact, Vladimir Putin knows for a fact that Ukraine does not stand a chance military-wise against Russia. The world knows that. I mean, it's a known fact, all right? So then here's what he's doing. He is testing the waters. Many analysts are already saying this. He is testing to see how the United States, NATO, Europe, and everybody else reacts. And the sad part about it is this. It's simply this. There are people all over the world, young and old, that are flocking to Ukraine right now, arming themselves with M16s and AK-47s, ready to take on the Russian military. And the truth of the matter is they're unequipped. They are not equipped to take on tanks and airstrikes and missiles and all these things. They're sitting ducks, more or less. And although their heart is in the right place, the Biden administration is failing Ukraine right now as we speak. Biden should tell Vladimir Putin, NATO should tell Vladimir Putin, they should say, if you even in the littlest bit attempt to take over Ukraine, if so much as a bullet or a shell casing falls into the Ukrainian border, you will be destroyed, utterly destroyed. We will send the world's most powerful army. Even if we as Americans have to do it by ourselves, we should defend Ukraine right now. Listen, what is happening over there right now is no different than what Adolf Hitler did that triggered World War II. The same thing. He slowly but surely conquered these places until he almost conquered all of Europe. All right, Russia during the Obama administration conquered Crimea. Now they're going after Ukraine. When does it stop? It don't. Unless somebody puts a stop to them, it will not stop. So here's what's happening. I'll tell you right now, this is what exactly is going to happen. Russia will take over Ukraine. It's going to happen. Then China will take over Taiwan because nobody will stand up to them and stop them. It will not happen. And it is very sad. It is very unfortunate. But now you say, all right, I hear you. You're saying all these things. Is it biblical? Well, absolutely. In Ezekiel 38, many pastors, including myself, have talked about a war, the Gog-Magog war. All right. And what is going to happen is, and I don't have a map I can show you. Pull up a map. Look at it later after this. But what is happening is as Russia begins to take over this region around the Black Sea, then they will have Turkey left right below them. And then all the surrounding nations around Israel, they are already a presence in Syria. All these nations, they already fund these nations. Iran, Persia, as the Bible calls them. Russia's been there. They're friends with them. They supply weapons to them. They are set up there. Afghanistan, all these nations, the Taliban. So Russia's already in all these areas, already in all these nations. And in Ezekiel chapter 38, the Bible tells us, and I'm just going to explain the first 7 verses. It explains the nations that will come in on top of Israel. And then it explains in verse 8, here's what it says. It says, after many days, you shall be visited in the latter years. Now, what it is talking about is once Israel has become a nation again. All right. And that happened in 1948. As a matter of fact, Ezekiel 37 talked about that, the valley of dry bones, where God brings Israel back to life. And then what we know, we've lived through and seen, is that all of Israel after World War II comes back together as a nation. All right, and they are now flourishing. They're in Israel. They're doing great. They're flourishing. To be so little, they're one of the most powerful militaries in the world. They're doing great. God has made the land green again. He said He would right here in Ezekiel 37 and then following it into Ezekiel 38, how that God will bless them. Well, these are those latter years. For 2,000 years since the Romans kicked the Jews out of Israel in 77 AD or 70 to 77 AD, right in that time when the temple was destroyed, the second temple, Israel had been desolate, all right, had been conquered by many other nations. And it was not Israel. As a matter of fact, they named it Palestine. It wasn't even Israel no more to the world. And in 1948, that all changed. So when he says right here in the latter years, here's what's happened. He says, you shall come into the land that is brought back from the source. See there, they're brought back. They're here. They're come back. He says, you come that is brought back and is gathered out of many people. There it is. They come from all over the world as refugees. After World War II, after the Holocaust, they come from all over the world back into there. And he says, is the mountains of Israel, which have been always a waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely in them. Here we go. They are safely in Israel, have been for 70-something years. All right, so here's the point. Have there been wars? Have there been conflicts? Absolutely. But the point is, they're still there. They fight off. They defend every time. We as America have helped them over the years. But the point is, God is blessing them. God is with them just like He said He would be. Just like this prophecy said it would be. So here's what's happening. Israel's there. All right, but something's going to happen. This Gog-Magog war, as we have all come to call it. Verse 9 says this. Ezekiel 38 verse 9 says, you shall ascend and come like a storm. They shall be like a cloud, cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. All right, here's the first 7 verses of those nations that are now fixing to come down on Israel like a cloud, like a storm. All right, God said this would happen. As a matter of fact, if you skip down several verses down to verse 16, it repeats itself. Here's what He says in verse 16. And you shall come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. All right, so here's what's happening. These nations are going to come down on Israel, y'all, and they are going to do everything in their power to conquer Israel. All right, they're going to come down like a cloud. Israel don't stand a chance, but God. The Bible goes on to tell us God is going to intervene. God is going to step in, and He will destroy these armies. He will destroy this army. All right, these nations, and I'm going to just name a few right here. Russia will be one of those nations. Germany may potentially be one of these nations. Turkey will potentially be one of these nations. Persia, which we know as Iran, will be one of these nations. Potentially Lebanon, meaning a nation surrounding Israel right there, but it will all be headed up by Russia. Now, I do believe China will be involved in this. All right, I believe China will help and be involved. Where's America? All right, this is a grand question right here. Where is America during this conflict? Good question. I believe with all my heart we're gone. I believe we have fallen by the wayside militarily, power-wise, and here's why. The Bible also tells us in chapter 39 that for 7 years Israel will enjoy the spoils of this world. How long is the tribulation period? 7 years. The tribulation period is not for the Gentiles. All right, the time of the Gentiles will end. All right, the Bible tells us this in Luke. Jesus warned the Jews in Matthew chapter 24. He warned the disciples, which He's talking to the Jews. He says, you will endure this tribulation. The tribulation period is for Israel, but something's going to have to happen during this time that will allow Israel to build the third temple. And this war is what I think is going to help that. Here's what I think is fixing to happen. Are we fixing to be raptured out? Potentially. Listen, it could have done happen. It could happen right now. Nothing else biblically has to happen for Jesus to come get us. All right, that's not the question here. But here's what will happen. Excuse me. The Antichrist will have to be exposed. He will have to be known. Thessalonians, Paul tells us this. All right, 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, I believe it is. He says, the Antichrist will reveal himself, but the Antichrist can only do that once the church is removed. We will know him. We will call him out. We would recognize him if we were on earth still. All right, but he will announce himself once the church is raptured out. I believe it's with all my heart. A lot of people are going to argue right here because some believe in a mid-tribulation rapture. Some believe in a post-tribulation rapture. I do not. I am a pre-tribulation rapture believer, and this is why. We will not see or know the Antichrist. He will come after we're gone. He will show himself after we're gone, and this is what 1 Thessalonians chapter 3 tells us. All right, so then here's what's going to happen. All these nations, if Israel right now tried to build the third temple, war would break out. All right, there would be conflict and war like the world's never seen over a temple and over that Temple Mount. It is controlled by the Arabs right now, the Palestinians. It is controlled by Jordan right now. There is no way Israel is going to try to build a third temple. But when these nations come down on Israel, and then the Bible says that the world will know the God of Israel at this time, when God slays these armies at the battle, at this Gog-Magog war. Here's what is going to happen. They're going to come down on Israel. Israel don't stand a chance, but God is going to destroy them. Ezekiel 38 tells us this. So then here's what happens. The world, number one, will be depleted of all military power at this point because God has just destroyed the largest army in the world. Number two, the world will be scared of the God of Israel. And at this moment, Israel will begin to build their third temple. The world will also be in chaos. Financial chaos, economic chaos, world leader chaos. All right, it will be in all these chaoses. This is a perfect stage and platform for the Antichrist, and hence the name Antichrist, anti-Jesus, to show up and say, I am the Messiah. I am the Savior. Israel, build your third temple. I will back you. I will cause peace. All right. A huge war just happened. God destroyed these. A war had just devastated these nations. So this man's going to come onto the scene and say, I will create peace. All right. He's lying. He's anti-Jesus. He is setting up a fake Davidic David throne. All right. The disciples asked Jesus in Acts chapter 1, they said, Master, when are you going to set up the kingdom? When are you going to set up a throne? He said, that's not for you to know. Go preach and teach the gospel to all the nations. All right. This is what the Antichrist is doing. He's setting up that throne. But Jesus will be King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But that's why we call him the anti-Jesus. All right. Because he's setting up a fake throne, a fake kingdom. And as you all know, for 3.5 years, there will be peace. He will allow Israel to do their sacrifices. They will have built their third temple. Nobody will bother Israel at that point. He will turn on Israel. Second half of the tribulation, as we know as the Great Tribulation period. He will then hunt down, require the mark of the beast, so on and so forth. So, this is a step in that direction. Ukraine being taken over by Russia is a step in that direction. Why do I say that? Because who's going to stop them? Listen to me. If we had a true leader in Washington right now, Nancy Pelosi just sent everybody off on vacation. Biden's telling everybody, America, get out. If you're American, get out of Ukraine. They have zero intentions of helping Ukraine. They know, we know, Ukraine is fixing to be taken over by Russia. And Russia is, Vladimir Putin is saying this, I guarantee I can take them over and nobody will stop me. And he's right. He's exactly right. We are weak. We are showing our weakness, and it is dangerous. Listen to me. This is how World War I and II happened, because nobody would stand up to these bullies. And they were taking over. Adolf Hitler, now Vladimir Putin, the president of China's the same way. Nobody will stand up to these bullies, and they're going to take, and they're going to take, and they're going to take until somebody fights back. That should be us. America should fight back. We should defend Ukraine right now. Listen, I'm not saying necessarily you have to put troops on the ground. I don't even think that's necessary. We got the most powerful Air Force and air strikes that the world has ever seen. We don't even have to put troops on the ground. We can totally devastate Russia from the air. All right? We have stealth bombers, stealth fighters. Russia couldn't touch us. Nobody could touch us. Then NATO should be backing us. Well, I would give NATO an ultimatum. I'd say, either you help or don't ever think I'm going to help you again. You need me, and you know you do. You better help me in this conflict. You see, there's so many answers that could happen. Just like, I can't remember his name, but y'all know the statements I'm fixing to reference right here. He more or less told one of the people from Britain the other day, it's like talking to a deaf, mute person. Listen to me. I would look at him straight in the face and I would say, look here, listen to this deaf mute person very clearly. If you try to mess with Ukraine, you will be destroyed. Moscow will be destroyed. Russia will be devastated. I promise you. That is not a threat. That is a promise. And we should do it. Period. End of story. We don't have to get in a ground war with these people. We should devastate them from the air. We can. We are fully capable. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to sit by the wayside and we're going to let these bullies take over. Now, as you can tell, I'm a little upset about this. As you can tell, I get a little excited about this. And should I or should I not? Here's the point. I hate a bully. I do not like how our leadership, how the leaders of the world are cowering down to these bullies. I'm talking about Vladimir Putin and the leader of China. They are bullying their ways right now, and the world is doing nothing about it. And that is very disturbing to me right now. Because, listen to me, you could nip war in the bud. You could stop these bullies, but they're not. It's just like a bully on the playground. They're going to push and push and push and push until somebody fights back, until you hit them in the mouth and let them know, I will not be bullied. All right? And until that happens, but here's the problem. How much damage will they do before that happens? How many people have to die? Innocent people in Ukraine are fixing to die. And nobody cares. These world leaders don't care. NATO don't care. America, Joe Biden, I'm not going to say America as a whole, but Joe Biden and the Biden administration, they do not care. Nancy Pelosi does not care. That's why she just sent everybody off for 2-week vacation, knowing a potential invasion is fixing to happen. Nobody cares. All right, they're sleeping in their multi-million-dollar homes, knowing people are fixing to die. People are getting conquered, innocent lives that have no way of defending themselves, and nobody cares. That is not right. That is not right. However, this is potentially of biblical proportion. These nations, Russia's fixing to have all control. They're taking over the Black Sea region. They're fixing to have all control, and they will come down on Israel. And listen, this is why nobody is standing up to them. Nobody will stop them, and they will continue to conquer. They will continue to move. They will continue. But God, listen to me. If anything about this excites me, God is going to put them in their place. God is going to show them that you will not bully my people. Praise God. I love my God. He ain't no sissy. He's not scared. You hear me? He will put a stop to this. But listen to me. We all right now need to be praying for the Ukrainian people. We need to be praying for our leaders. We need to be praying for the leaders of NATO and of Europe. Boris Johnson, he knows this is happening. He should do something about it. He's not either. I blame all European, American, and world leaders right now for what's fixing to happen. They should help. They should step in and they should help. But they're not. And because they're not, and Vladimir Putin knows this, he's going to conquer. Because he knows there will be no resistance. And he also knows I can do this easily. And he will. Watch and see. But listen to me. Start praying for these people. Start praying for these world leaders. Start praying for Ukraine. Start praying that God will intervene and will help and will save lives right here. Listen, I would much rather God spare the lives of these innocent people. And listen, and that's going to happen because of our prayers. All right? We must be praying for these people because they are in a very bad way right now. I just want to lift them up in prayer. I want to give you an update because, listen, the world news, while they're doing a pretty good job of covering what's happening right now, and while it's black and white, we all see what's fixing to happen. They're doing these war games in Belarus and all around on the Black Sea and all around the border right now. We see what's going on. The point is this. Is it a biblical proportion? Absolutely. Is something big could potentially come out of this? Yes, the Gog-Magog war. They're going to come down like a cloud. The Bible clearly tells that. Read Ezekiel chapter 38. You will see very clearly what is happening right now. Remember, when you see the word latter years, that's now. All right, when Ezekiel was writing this, he's talking about many, many years down the road. That's now, y'all. That's 2022. That's now. All right. So you are seeing something of biblical proportion happen right now. Right before our very eyes. Be praying for these people. Love y'all. God bless y'all. We'll keep you updated.